Welcome to the Altitude Show. I'm your host, Dave Brinker. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Altitude Show. I'm your host, Dave Brinker. Hope everybody's good out there. Today we have Courtney LeVesque on the podcast. Courtney is a friend of mine. She's a certified personal trainer, an outdoor fanatic, hunter, serial entrepreneur, digital creator. She's the host of the Soul Summit podcast. You should check it out. I've done it several times. And also a fellow Oregonian. We talk about productivity, focusing on the present, how you measure adventure, discipline, fitness, the outdoors, business, and much, much more. It's a really fun episode. We always have great conversations. While you're here, go out and support GoHunt.com. They support the show. They're an amazing company. If you are a hunter and you're not using their research tools or shopping in their gear shop, you're missing out. Also, check out Outdoor Class. If you're a new hunter or even an experienced hunter that just wants to learn from the best there is out there, check it out, outdoorclass.com. Peaks Equipment. Peaks Equipment is a great gear company out of Bozeman, Montana that makes everything from gaiters, trekking poles, headlamps. Go check them out. If you're a hardcore backcountry Western hunter, you're missing out if you're not checking out all three of those things. Enjoy the episode today. Subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, The Altitude Show. Share this with your friends. I appreciate all the support. Here we go. The Altitude Show is brought to you by Peaks Equipment, the world's leading technical, hard goods, and accessories brand for backcountry enthusiasts. From trekking poles to headlamps to best-in-class gaiters, Peaks delivers a system of products that work to achieve optimal performance in the harshest conditions. Don't suffer on your hunting adventures. Peaks enables you to thrive on the mountain when everyone else is going home. Visit peaksequipment.com and use code ALTITUDE for 10% off today. That's Altitude for 10% off on peaksequipment.com. Outdoor Class is the new source of premium outdoor education from trusted and knowledgeable experts. For hunters committed to improving their skills, Outdoor Class is the only subscription-based e-learning platform that provides unlimited access to video lessons from the world's most respected experts. Learn from industry leaders like Corey Jacobson, Randy Newberg, Remy Warren, and other experts across all the topics that affect you as a hunter. Make sure to follow Outdoor Class Official on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and take your game to the next level by going to outdoorclass.com. You can use code ALTITUDE at checkout for 20% off. That is Altitude at checkout for 20% off at outdoorclass.com. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Altitude Show. I'm your host, Dave Brinker. Today we have Courtney LeVesque on the podcast. I'm super excited to have her on. We've been friends for a while now, and she's a super inspiring chick. And welcome.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited to be a guest on your show, and it's nice to have the tables reversed here a little bit and get to just chit chat on another platform. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I've been a guest on her podcast a couple times now, I think twice.
Yep.
And we've been trying to get together and do another one, but we've had a little scheduling issues.
Hello, show season.
Yeah. Yeah, we were both, let's see, you probably did more shows this year than I did, but the outdoor show season, for those who aren't in the industry, these trade shows, they happen usually from January through February, sometimes into early March. And there's a lot of people out there that have to travel that whole time and spend 4 or 5 days on these, sometimes up to 10 days on these trade show floors in one case. And Courtney goes to several. I used to go to almost all of them, but now I have chose to focus only on a couple, just being a family man. But how was the
quality over quantity for sure?
Yeah. How was the trail?
It's been really good. I think honestly for me, it was nice to just kind of step back into that, dip my toe in the water a bit. But it's been a lot of fun catching up with people, just getting to see new folks, meet people that haven't got out for a while. Actually, this year I talked to a lot of people on a consumer side that were just coming into the shows for the first time. So I think people are just excited to get out and reconnect with others and share stories and just kind of feel that normalcy again.
Yeah, it definitely felt like there was like a backlog and of like people just wanting to get the hell out of their houses and see all their friends. A lot, especially on the industry side of it, like a lot of these people that go to these shows, they don't see each other except at these shows. You literally have show friends that you're like, hey, it's been a year, what's up? Let's go get a beer or whatever. And then from the consumer side, yeah, I mean, most of the shows were canceled last year. There was a couple that happened, and then the year before that, all of them basically were canceled.
Right.
So Courtney and I were at the Salt Lake show here a few weeks ago. It's called the Western Hunting Expo, and it was like people were chomping at the bit. I've been to that show probably 10 times at this point, and I think that was probably the busiest I've seen it. I don't know if the numbers reflect that, but it felt like the energy level was like super high because people were like, yeah, humans.
It did.
Communicating, like I get like COVID's gone.
Right. No, I felt that same thing. And I was really only there for about 24 hours or so, but same vibes. I picked up on that too. People were just really excited to be there. And I left Friday evening. So I knew Saturday and Sunday were just going to be totally crazy. But again, really just good to connect because I think that's what this community is about. The hunting industry, whether you're inside or outside or however you want to look at that, like it is community and it is getting to have those conversations and, squeeze people and have a beer and just catch up. And I think that kind of reunites us. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to go into the spring and into summer, lots of fun plans this fall, just kind of having that little extra pep in my step and motivation to get out there and crush it in the mountains.
Absolutely. So Courtney, for those that don't know much about you, could you just give us a little bit of background on who you are and where you came from?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a small town girl, lived here in Oregon my entire life. I still live 4 driveways down from where I grew up as a kid. So I kind of have to branch out for work a little bit. I try to adventure as much as I can just to see what's outside of this little town. But I've spent the last 20 years in the fitness industry. I learned from a very young age that I was really driven to just help other people succeed, recover from injuries or surgeries or traumas. And so at 17, I got my first fitness certification and just kind of kept rolling from there. Ended up creating my own business that over time evolved to really understanding that I love helping outdoor men and women achieve more in the mountains, kayaking, through hiking, all of that kind of stuff. So really catered to that. And then I have 2 little boys. So creating an entrepreneurial business that I could cater to people and coach and help inspire, but also allow me the flexibility to be a mom to them and pick up and drop off, and sports was really important. So, I was able to kind of mold my business into something that really worked for me as a single mom. And it's been absolutely amazing. Loved every minute of it. Loved my clients. It's been great. But I haven't talked about this publicly yet, but I did just officially retire from the fitness industry, which was a really long process. Actually, took me a couple of years to finally go like, you need to let this go. It's okay. It is not your identity, and you can reform who you are. Doesn't matter what you've done for 20 years. You can be Courtney, something else other than fitness. And so I've really just dove in the last few years into business development and marketing, and just love all assets and aspects of creating and building community for people, because I think that's sometimes what we miss is that interconnection to other people who share similar passions. And so here I am just kind of figuring it out and bumping my head against the wall. But
was your family like super health nuts, or like, where did you get that?
No, my family is not health nuts, actually.
So where did that come from? Where did your drive come from? Because you're pretty disciplined. I've paid attention for a while. I try to exercise at least 5 days a week, but I think I've told you this before. I've always been inspired by people like you and others that are around me that just that discipline level. It seems like my fitness like ebbs and flows. Like I'll get super into it and then it'll die off for a few months. It'll fizzle.
Sure.
And then I know people like you that's like always the same, no matter what. So like, where does that discipline come from if your family wasn't like that?
Well, the not so pretty part of the story was it came from trauma when I
Mm,
was young. My first job was as a lifeguard, which very quickly evolved into me doing group fitness classes. And then I went through some things in my life and coupled with depression, and I just was not a healthy human being. Like at an early teenage age, I was like binge drinking and drinking too much. And I ran away
mm,
from home and just had a really not great, because of the choices I was making,
yeah.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so through those things, I guess I hit a point where I knew something had to change, but I didn't necessarily have that intrinsic motivation to make the changes I needed. And then I got pregnant,
Mm,
which at the time was really scary. And I was 21, but I was just still a complete, you know, uh,
baby.
nightmare, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just a kid, and I didn't know any better, and I was not making the best choices, and I was still doing fitness coaching. And uh, I knew at that moment my life had to change. And so actually the day I found out I was pregnant, like I even smoked cigarettes, Brinker, like just the opposite of what somebody could picture me now, and I gave everything up that day. I mean, I wasn't doing like street drugs or anything, but I was like drinking too much and smoking cigarettes. And I quit that day, and I said, okay, I'm going to start walking every day. And I got a calendar from the dollar store, and every day that I'd walk, I would just mark an X. And over time, that consistency from even something simple like the habit of walking every day made me feel better, to the
Hmm.
point where I was like, there's something to this movement thing. And so I expanded on my certifications and got my CPT, and got a certification in nutrition, and just really started understanding the power of purposeful movement, especially when we're outside. So that's really where that stemmed from. And, it can be hard sometimes, because having some family and friends that don't necessarily have that mindset, you have to be rigid to some degree in your consistency in your training regimen, and also be able to also be a human being that can show up for people who aren't driven in the same ways.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. It sounds like you were kind of forced into it a way via, which you could look at as a good or a bad thing. Obviously, the trauma is not good, but sometimes traumatic experiences lead us to a healthier lifestyle.
Totally.
It's
Totally.
not. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not the way we want to be led to a healthier lifestyle, but it seems like that's kind of the way it goes sometimes.
Sometimes I feel like that's the only way,
Yeah.
because if you don't have that hard, rock bottom
Hmm.
surface, then you're like, why would you ever stop? Why would you ever be motivated to make better decisions? And I hate to say everything happens for a reason, and that like really those bad things that happen can be good, but I believe they can. And for me, that was my story, that I
Hmm.
took what I went through, because I ended up being able to understand where a woman was coming from when she came to me and said, I hate my body, I hate my life because I've been through this, and it just gives you a deeper connection with people. And I think that connection is so incredibly important.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the trauma is also, this is kind of where the discipline comes in though, because anytime I've hit rock bottom or I've seen people around me hit rock bottom, it seems like they're going to be like, I'm going to quit drinking, I'm going to start working out. Like it's like almost like New Year's Eve in a way. And then they make changes, and for a month or a couple months, and then their life kind of comes back together into more of their comfort zone again, and then they kind of fall back into the bad habits again. It's like this nasty cycle. So the fact that you were able to pull yourself through that and then continue building on top of that. I mean, obviously I don't know your whole history, but it seems like for the most part, you've continued to move forward since then.
Totally. Yep. And, I think it's motivation is a wavering emotion for a lot of people. Some people, there are very, very few people who are they're just motivated human beings. But for the general society and general population, we have to muster that up somehow. And it's an ebb and flow. It's sometimes you're all in and sometimes you're all out and sometimes you're a nightmare and sometimes you can give 100% and sometimes you show up with 2%.
Right.
But I think that is what I've figured out is to, when you understand that you're not always going to be motivated and you feel like showing up for yourself, when you realize that fact, then you go, okay, now I just need to know how to show up for myself when I don't want to.
Yeah. And it's much easier said than done. Like showing up specifically like for working out, just about everybody can work out when they want to, right? But the hardest part is working out when you don't want to. And it's really hard to push yourself. I struggle with. Actually, I had this happen this morning. I had my alarm set for 5:30, and yesterday I did a really hard bike ride at 5:30, and it just crushed me. I was laying in bed at like 5:15. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to do that again. But then I'm like, wait a second. This is exactly when you need to do it. That's precisely because if you do it then everything else, every other time is that much easier. But that's that discipline aspect. The other times it seems like it's hard to get motivated to keep, like, I guess, becoming a better human is when your life's kind of in the dumps and maybe like something like that's super stressful. Or, for me, it's stress. Like if I'm super duper duper stressed out, that's like the time I should take a break and like work out or, go for a walk or go for a hike or shoot my bow or whatever for like mental and physical health. But sometimes I'm so stressed out, it almost debilitates you. And I've seen other people do this too. It's like to where you just go to your other habits. Like, well, screw it. I'll just go get a few beers and, you go to your bad habits as opposed to doing something a little bit more healthy.
And you know what? I don't think that's all bad. I really don't because
I'm guilty of it.
And so am I. And you know what? I think that balance is more important than really stringent consistency because willpower is not necessarily a renewable resource. The more you resist things, the more you are just rigid in your routine, the more likely you are to actually fall off. And I know that's a little bit counterintuitive, but sometimes we have to fall off because we have to press that reset button. And it's not even, and I say that, but it's not even a fall off, so to speak.
It's just a balance.
It's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance. And you know what? If you want to eat the damn cake, eat the damn cake. If you want to have 2 beers after whatever, do the thing. Because if you feel like you are neglecting your life and not getting to have some leniency with who you are as a human being, you're going to be more miserable. You're going to be more stressed out. You're going to be more likely to fall off long-term than to have this pretty good foundation of success, fitness, financial, business, whatever it is. If you can have a little bit of ebb and flow and have that mindset to where you don't look at that and go, oh, that was a fail, right? You just go like, screw it. I chose to have 2 beers tomorrow. I'm going to write at 5:30, whatever, do those things. Because if you're too straight and narrow, I think you lose some of your joy. I think that you lose some of your connection with other people. And I think you lose some of the things that make you human.
That's a really good point. I think there's certain personalities that can be super stringent and probably live a pretty good life. But I feel like most of us need to have those outlets where it's like, you know what? Like, fuck it. Today, I'm like just going to go out with my friends, have a good time, eat that dessert, whatever. And I've found that is the only sustainable way for me to have to pursue better mental and physical health. It can't be like a good example. One of my weaknesses is alcohol, beer, like a beer or a glass of wine. I'm not an alcoholic, but I like a beer or a glass of wine. It's kind of like it's always been like, oh man, the long day. A cold beer in the summer or like a glass of wine in the winter when it's pouring down rain, like that just sounds good to me and I enjoy it. I can stop myself. I don't need to get a buzz or get drunk or whatever. I used to I was just like everybody else in my 20s, but I've had plenty of hangovers. I don't need that anymore.
No,
But
and they get worse as you get older. Not
yeah,
fair.
yeah. But what I've noticed with it, because I've gone, 6-month, year periods where I didn't drink a drop just to see if I could, and I felt great, and it was great. But then it was like, I don't know, man. I'm going out with my buddy today. Like, I'd like to have a beer with him. Like, it's fun. It's like I don't. So I needed to find that sweet spot where it's like I know that I know I don't need this physically, but I also know that I enjoy it. So I need to have a balance to where it's healthy and I'm not dependent on it, but I'm not going to just cut it out of my life completely because I do enjoy it in moderation. And sugar's the same way for me. So I think I'll like one of my friends is working really hard on her health right now, and she gets in these cycles where it's like super duper hardcore, like two times a day, no sugar, all this stuff. And I get it. It's like all the things that you're supposed to be doing, but also it seems like it's like a vacuum of all fun out of life. And like life's too short to not enjoy some things. You don't have to like beat yourself up about having a piece of cake if you're healthy,
And if we look at those things, like she's working really hard on her health right now, is what you said. What does that mean? Does that mean that is based on her physiological responses? Or does that mean that based on what society has deemed appropriate, healthy, she's working on those things? And not to, this is not about her necessarily, but I think that we do this as humans. We look at the outside pressures and expectation and comparisons, and then we go, wait, what does healthy mean to me?
Yeah.
And what do I have to give up? Because we can be healthy, in my opinion, without giving up a lot of things. I mean, granted, you're not using street drugs or doing bad things, but we can be healthy without really having a restrictive lifestyle. It's balance.
Yeah. There was a guy in the hunting industry. I think he passed away, but his name was Warren Strickland. He was a famous, like one of the top heart surgeons in the country. And I remember like 10 years ago, I had lunch with him down in Kentucky. And I asked him like, okay, you're a heart surgeon, what's the key to keeping a healthy heart or something like that? I can't remember the exact question. He goes, do you move? Yeah, I move. Do you eat okay? Yeah, I eat okay. He's like, you're fine. Oh, I know what it was. They were serving hot dogs. I'm like, and he was like slamming a hot dog. I'm like, dude, you're like a heart surgeon. You're like slamming hot dogs on big white buns. He's like, dude, just move, sleep, eat mostly healthy, and your heart's going to be just fine. Like
manage your stress.
Yeah. Like it doesn't have to be a David Goggins type, and I follow David Goggins all the time, and I respect him and like I'm inspired by him, but also you don't need to be miserable all the time. Like that's
totally
just not my opinion anyway. And that was kind of the perspective I got from him. It's like, just have a balance, be healthy, and you're going to be fine. Most likely, obviously there's cases where that's not true. So I find the conversation of balance, and you mentioned it across all spectrums of your life. We all fall also, like, especially us business owners, like it's hard to have balance because all the weight's on your shoulder. You don't have like a whole corporation to pass off stress to. It's all your fault. And it's all, any successes are you're accountable for those and your failures. There's no like, the blame game and like working yourself out of a bad situation. Basically, you have to deal with everything. So it's really hard to have balance because you're constantly like in offense and defense, like nonstop in your sleep. When you wake up before you go to bed, it's hard to put down your phone. So like, how do you do that? Like, you seem like a pretty well-balanced person.
I didn't used to be, and I do feel like I'm getting better. And to be completely transparent, retiring from fitness has allowed me to have better balance. Because I'm not somebody who can work closely with clients. Like I would work with clients for, some of them years on end, and you get to have this very close, personal, intimate relationship with them. And when they're going through trials, it was really hard for me to not almost face those trials with them. And so I found myself a lot more available on my phone and in my inbox a ton more than I'm not working with coaching, personal training clients, which is not to say anything bad about them. It's only speaking to how I process things.
Yeah.
And so for me now, having a business where, I have business clients where I'm working with marketing partners and stuff, but I don't take that to bed with me. I'm not rolling around thinking at night about those things. And I found now, like yesterday, you called me. I was on the side of a mountain with my 12-year-old kid that I may or may not have pulled out of school to go shed hunting on a date with him. So, for me now, I'm like, we're going to go, the projects, the deadlines can wait, that falls on my shoulders to know that I'm on task or not on task. And then from there, I'm just like, life is too short. I really do feel like every day I wake up going, how can I bring joy today? Do I do that flawlessly? No, but that is always my MO. How can I bring joy to today? Whether it's with my 15-year-old or, a client or the community of social media, like how can I bring some joy today? That's where I find balance.
That's amazing. I need to learn from you because especially on the business side, it's really, really hard to find that balance. I've gotten better too. I used to be a lot worse, coming home at 7:00 at night and, being in the office by 6 or 6:30 and stuff like that. I feel like I'm better at it. One of the things that I've done is, and I told my buddy this morning, who's kind of struggling with sleeping at night. I said, dude, you're like literally on your phone until 10:00 at night. You got to put that thing down like 2 hours before you go to bed, or an hour, at least an hour. And he's like, dude, that's impossible. I'm like, no, it's not, because I figured out how to do it and it was hard. I put it on a charger in a separate room like an hour before I go to bed. And it's like the last time I look at it for the day, and it does not ever enter my bedroom once it's like in the realm of nighttime, because
sure.
If it was, I would roll over and look at it right before bed, and that, the blue light. But I think maybe as we get older, we realize that you just got to get the hell out for the day. And I work with my dad, and he's so good at it now. He's like 70 years old, and he'll be like, peace out, I'm going golfing or fishing or whatever. And to me, some days when he does it, I'm like, Dad, no, like we have so much going on today. You can't. He's like, don't even call me.
I love it.
He's like, whatever. Like, I remember we were going through one really stressful situation a couple of years ago, and I called him. I'm like, hey, we got to jump on a conference call and deal with XYZ, ABC. And he's like, my phone's going to stop working here in about 15 minutes. I'm going fishing. And I'm like, fish? Like, literally, what? You're going fishing? He's like, yeah, and I won't be able to talk to you until like later this afternoon. I'm like, oh my God, how could you go fishing right now? And he's like, because fuck it. That's why. Like, he's like, it'll be fine, and we'll work it out tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about it today. I'm literally not even going to think about it once. And I was like having a panic attack. So maybe it's something as we get older, like you said, where you can just be like, it just makes it easier to unplug and realize that to-do list is never going to end. So it's up to you to figure out when you're going to just take breaks.
I spent most of my life being wrapped up in the mantra that productivity equals my worth. And so I spent years with a to-do list that never got finished. And it was just this external expectation I was putting on myself because I was a people pleaser and I wanted to make people happy. And I felt like if I wasn't miserably tired from the grind, I wasn't valuable as a human being. And I had to let that go. And I don't even know that there was a definitive moment where that happened. I think it was kind of just an evolution, like you were saying about getting older. And then in the last few years, I've watched a lot of friends pass away, and I've watched um, young people go through cancer that took their lives. And I've watched my parent or my friends bury parents. And I'm just like, it's too short. It's too short. Coupled with the fact that I am not money driven, I'm experience driven. And so those things together, I think, have kind of allowed me to let some of that go. And again, this is not a flawless thing. It is still work for me sometimes. But I think generally speaking, I'm here for the experience. And I feel like if I get too wrapped up in worry or overwhelm or overthinking or overburdening myself with to-dos that really don't fucking matter, I become miserable. When I'm miserable, there's no joy happening in my immediate circles, right? My friends, my family, my kids, my whatever. So that to me is very important. Again, don't do it flawlessly, but it is a work in progress.
Yeah. I didn't realize until my late 20s that to-do lists don't ever get done. Like, they're great and I still use them a little bit less lately because they're kind of annoying. It's like you just keep adding to them and adding to them and adding to them and adding to them and adding to them. And my wife and I have had this debate before because she's type A, like pretty organized, and she struggles sometimes with putting it down too. And sometimes I'll just tell her, honey, that list will be there tomorrow. You're not going to finish it. And even if you did, you're going to think of 3 other things you could add to it.
You know, what was really helpful for me is I stopped putting all the mundane, like email this person or, the specifics. And I started waking up every day, just writing objectives. What do I need to accomplish today? And then I look at those 3 to 5 things maybe, and I go, what do I need to do to accomplish that? That to me has taken some of the burden of that never ending, never done to-do list. And it made it a little bit more like I'm getting more done now by doing less things. So
how do you become not money driven? Was that always been that way for you?
I've always been that way. If I can just make enough money to, have an adventurous lifestyle with my kids and pay the mortgage and do those things, I'm happy. My fiance, on the other hand, is different, which I think is a good aspect because he's a long-term thinker. I'm a short-term in the now, live in the moment. So that's good balance for me. But I would say generally, like, I've never really been a money-driven person. Do I like making money? Sure. But it's not what, keeps my mind going and keeps me from sleeping. Like, how do I make that next, whatever.
Yeah. I've put a lot of thought into this one, just trying to figure out what that balance could be. Because I've always said I've spent most of my life money broke and experience rich. And I definitely would not trade that. Like,
no,
because I know rich people that have had no experiences. Like, some of them have barely ever left the state. But at the same time, I do think money can be used as a tool. Well, money can be used as a tool for experiences, right?
Definitely.
I think the problem and it's really, really, it's almost like the ring in Lord of the Rings. It's like, it's really, really easy to let it corrupt you because it's so powerful. And, for weird reasons, because we're humans. But I've always kind of been seeking and trying to understand and maybe someday achieve like a balance of having enough money to where, you're safe, secure, fed, all the major life needs, but also to where you don't have to worry about the bills enough to be able to have the experiences for you and your family that you want, which everybody's different. For some people, that could be, your 2-week camping trip in the summer. For me, it's like, I want to travel the world with my family, and that costs a lot of money. And so it's just this weird adventure of trying to figure out what is that balance, because in order to make that amount of money, you kind of do need to be a little bit focused on it, because it's hard. It's hard to figure out ways to make enough money to travel the world with your family. But then it's like, if you're too focused on it, then you are money driven a little bit, but you're only money driven because you want more experiences. So it's like this weird push and pull. And the other day I had a 21-year-old friend of mine, this kid in my office who's a local hunter here, and he's kind of just trying to figure out his life. And we were talking about this because I think when you're 21, like you want to try to figure out a way to make quick money. It's like, I don't know, like I just want money right now so I can buy a big jacked up truck and, you know, a boat and whatever, impress the girls, whatever. And I was trying to explain to him, like, you're 21 with no strings, no kids, no girlfriend. You live with your parents. You can literally go do anything you want right now experientially. Like, make enough money to go travel, spend it all, go back, make more, go do whatever, travel, hunt, whatever you do, because you have your whole life to make money. And he's like, oh, that's a really good point. I'm like, dude, if you miss this window, you're going to end up, you know, you're going to get married, you're going to have a couple kids. Pretty soon you're going to have to keep that job. And it just gets much harder as you get older to do those things. And I can't remember what magazine it was, but do you know who Kimmy Warner is? I think we've had this conversation before. She is a really inspiring woman in Hawaii who's like a fisherwoman. I don't know how you say it, but she's like an underwater hunter. How about that? But she was featured in a magazine last year about the rich. It was like this whole idea of, it was like the top 25 or top 50 richest people in the world, but it wasn't rich with money. It was like rich with experience. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that was an interesting concept. But back to whatever point I'm trying to make, which is, how do you find a balance between money and experiences? Because obviously they're both important.
Who knows? Who knows? I think it's a lifelong search for balance. Again, I think really, truly, and I don't want to overstate the word balance, but I really ingrained in my DNA, I think that is the peacemaker between all of the conflicts, the financial conflict, experience or money, or time or work. Like, there's just, goals, eating healthy, fitness, weight loss, all the things just come down to balance. Like, it really is just, you have to be pretty aware of who you are. And if you were to end up on your deathbed tomorrow, what would you regret not having done more of? Cliche, maybe it is. But I remember, like, 8.5 years ago, my grandma she was battling pancreatic cancer, and we knew it was getting kind of to the end. She knew it was getting kind of the end. And she pulled me aside, and she had this sweet little mohawk. Her hair was just growing back, just the cutest thing. I will never forget it. And she said, just promise me one thing, that you won't get to the end of your life wishing that you would have done more. Experience the things that you want to do, go to the places you want to go. And to some degree, that has weighed very heavily on my experiences, but more so the experiences that I share and invite my family on. So from that moment, for me, it was every year we go on like a 2-week or more trip with the kids, and we just take them to see new places. So we're always trying to cross off a new state or a new experience for them, because I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I feel like if I were to end up on my deathbed tomorrow, I'm at least going to be very grateful for the experiences that we had. Will I regret that I don't have a ton of money in the bank to leave them? I don't think so. I think that I'm going to be happy that we got to share those things together, because those are more priceless to me than a bank account.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way I grew up. That's definitely the way I lean too, but I'm trying to create, because my parents always provided us with amazing experiences, but they blew all their money. So now, I mean, obviously they're fine. They're very lucky. Excuse me. But I'm trying to find that balance too. It's like, if you do make money and you have money to give experiences, is the perspective that you just dump it all into that? Or do you, I hate the word retirement. I know only the word, the idea I like, but it's so like when people say, do you have a retirement account? It's like, I have an account that, that I put money into for my later life, but I would be so bored if I wasn't doing anything. So
Totally.
like my whole goal is freedom. I want the freedom to do what I want. And that might be actually working on a project I'm excited about. It might be driving around with an RV. I don't know, but I want to be able to choose, right? And I don't want someone to tell me what year I can do that. I don't want to wait till I'm 65 either. I want to have the option earlier. Will I achieve that? I don't know, but I'm going to try.
Yeah.
And so you're right. It's life's kind of an everything balancing act. And if you do have the opportunity to speak to people that are a lot older than you, or even dying for that matter, it seems like the message is pretty consistent. I was just having this conversation with my wife the other day, and it reminded me of, similar to your story, my grandpa. He wasn't dying, but he was like dipping into the depths of dementia. So it was like, it was kind of the last of his mental health before he spent like 5 years where he didn't even know who I was. But I remember driving to town with him one day, and I asked him, what would be your advice for life? He was probably 85 or 87 at this point. And he said, it is just so weird how fast it goes. He's like, I'm watching you like going on these hunting trips and like doing all this stuff. That was me like yesterday. And he's like, I'm so jealous, but just never forget, like, I was you yesterday.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And he's like, it goes so fast. And now that my daughter is, or my kids are, it's cliche, but it's true. It's like one day they're born, the next day they're going off to high school. It's a really, really weird experience that I think puts all this stuff into perspective, and it like makes you back up and go, holy crap, maybe I don't need to work 10 hours a day. Maybe I do need to get out more. And maybe, because pretty soon, I literally remember when I was the same age as my kids and my parents were my age. And now my parents are 70, which is only 15 years before my grandpa said those words to me. And it's like, whoa, this is like light speed. This is all happening too fast. Gray hairs start popping in. You have friends, you lose some friends. Yeah. People get divorced. You even see people lose children. Like, it's a crazy mess.
It really is. It really is. And I remember I went through, so I had my first son when I was 21, and then my next son when I was 24. And in my opinion, that's pretty young to be a parent, especially where I was. I feel like I was a pretty immature 20-year-old. And so for a lot of that, I felt like I found myself saying, gosh, I just wish we could get through this phase. I just wish we could get to this next thing. I just wish I could get to next year when this was going to happen. And I look at my son now, who is 6'4", he's 15. And I go, I wish you could be 5 again. I wish we could go to that little townhouse where we didn't have a kitchen table and we had so much joy because we were just together, so it's funny because I think that kind of gives you some perspective in trying to just stay in the here and now. And I've not always been good with that. Like I was saying, I've spent a lot of time, especially in the decades past, wishing I could get to the next thing and not enjoying the pieces of life that I was in at the time.
Yeah. Easy to do. I was thinking about, this is super nerdy, but I was thinking about the being in the present the other night, and it's like the present is even a weird idea because the present, if you say like right now, well, right now is already gone. So it's like
Yeah.
time's always moving. And I think we're just programmed to always be like looking forward, and it's good to, it's healthy to look forward to things, right? But I think what you're referring to, we did the same things. Like, God, I can't wait till we get the kids out of diapers. God, I can't wait till they sleep through the night. I can't wait till we get a bigger house. Can't wait till we get a new car. Everything will be much better when I get a new job. You know, we all have this like constant, I don't know if it's more, or just new, or whatever this mindset is, where, you know, I don't know how healthy a heavy dose of that is. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it pushes you. Maybe the point of it, like evolutionarily, is it pushes us to always find more safety, find better shelter, find better. I don't know, but I'm not a scientist, but it definitely is there. I struggle with it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you look back, like I'm sure maybe you can share the same sentiments. Like you were in that little townhouse with no kitchen table. You know, you probably thought in that moment, God, I can't wait till we have a bigger house with a frickin' kitchen table, you know? So, like, and then now you probably live in a house with a kitchen table and you miss that little town, like
I do.
that little house.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy?
It's the irony of it, you know, because I think it highlights the fact that we all need to probably do a better job of just being present, whatever that means, and living in the here and now.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I'm guilty of this every day of going, gosh, I can't wait until, well, but what am I doing in the meantime to create happiness or to be cognizant of the blessings that I have, to be really thankful for the positions that I'm in, right? Those things I bypass a lot of times because I am looking forward at the next achievement, the next adventure, the next benchmark.
Let's talk about that. Like, why are we obsessed with achievement? I mean, you come from the fitness world. Everybody's trying to get better six pack, bigger biceps, you know, bigger butt, whatever, better butt. What is that? And is it healthy? Specifically in the fitness realm?
Well, it's comparison. Is comparison healthy? No, it's not. If we lived in a world where the only people that you really saw on a day-to-day basis might be a neighbor, you know, out in the field across the way, we wouldn't have anything to try to be better. We wouldn't have an example of what we were trying to achieve. We wouldn't have something to be envious of or a six-pack we were idolizing. But we do. We have that constantly. It's the news, it's the social media, it's even our friends groups, even our family. We have so much socialization that it creates these pressures. And I say this all the time. Do you want to achieve something based on what you want truly, or based on something you think you should have, do, or be based on what you're consuming in your world?
In the fitness world, it seems like you're always, you know, even the people that are shredded and they're in great shape. It's like the difference between wanting to be healthy so you don't die early, like your heart's healthy, you're eating well, like, as opposed to just trying to, like you said, maybe it is comparison. Like, I'm just trying to get a good body to be attractive or look buffer than my buddies, but that's also, does it all go back to attractiveness and sexiness? Do you listen to Jordan Peterson?
No.
Oh, okay. He's talked about that before, where it's like, and I can't remember all the details, but he was talking about how, you know, if you're constantly chasing this body that you want, that you're comparing to other people's bodies, that traces back to our roots of like trying to be attractive to the opposite sex. So like if your buddy's got a better six pack than you and he's posted it on social media and you see it and it makes you feel like shit, it's because he's, you know, perceivably sexier than you and he's going to attract more mates. And this is all like stuff that I'm no expert on, but I'm just curious on what your perspective on that. Or is it just because you want the body?
I think there's a lot of different layers to that, but we're not elk. We're not worried necessarily about breeding. Like, yes, those things might be a part of our history and our evolution. But at the same time, I do not feel like those are the motivating factors for people wanting to look better naked. We all, as humans, whether we admit it, and it's all a spectrum, we all have a narcissistic personality trait somewhere in there. We want to look good. It is about us, how we feel, how we look, how other people perceive us. It's based on insecurities. And so if we have this little insecurity about our midsection, or if we have this insecurity about the size of our boobs or the size of our butt or whatever it is, biceps, whatever, that's always going to get wrapped into a comparison, a not good enough, trying to be better than. Is that psychological? Is that based on trying to reproduce? Probably somewhere in there. But at what point do we let that go and go, no, this is because we are so inundated as a society to having these external pressures and expectations and comparisons?
Have you ever seen somebody get to the point where they're totally satisfied with their body?
No.
Don't you think that's interesting?
Yes. I do. I do think it's interesting. Do I think people would be satisfied with their body if we lived in a different time? Yes.
So you think social media has a
I think it's media in general.
Yeah.
From all aspects. It's what we're hearing, listening to, lyrics and songs. It's everything. I can't just say it's social media that has not necessarily helped. But I think if we lived in a different time, yes, people would be less concerned about what their body looked like and more concerned and appreciative of what their body was capable of doing.
Yeah, it seems like it's almost like could be a shitty analogy, but it's almost like money. It's like a fleeting target or like a moving target. Like I've noticed it even with myself. Like when I get in the really good shape, for me, my perception of myself doesn't necessarily change that much, because once you get there, you're like, but what if I did this? It's the same thing we were just talking about. Mm-hmm. It's like, I can kind of see my abs now, but what if I could really see them? What do I need to do? And it's like when I get there, it's like, but I don't know. I'm just making up stuff at this point, but do you see what I'm saying?
Well, what determines satisfaction? It's a benchmark that does not have any real black and white. Mm-hmm. It's an opinion. Are we satisfied? That is based on our opinion. Mm-hmm. And I think once something gets good enough, so to speak, then you go, okay, what's next? Mm. There's really never this cut and dry level of satisfaction. Is that good or is that bad? I think to some degree, it can be really bad. I think to some degree, like you said, it can keep us striving to excel and not get complacent and stuck. Because once you do get complacent and stuck, all those things change, right? Weight goes up, right. Finances go down, whatever it is.
Tell me if you think this is true, because this is the only solution I've found to fitness for me. My number one objective is sustainability. What fitness program do I have where it pushes me enough to keep me healthy, but it doesn't push me so much to where my body, it feels like a piece of shit and I want to quit? So I don't get in 3 months and it's like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the way I look at my fitness. Sustainability. If I can sustain this for long periods of time and always raise the bar a little bit, but not so much to where I need to go to the chiropractor every other day, and I don't quit for like 3 month periods because I get so burnt out. Is that a good strategy?
I think that's a good strategy, but I think, again, some of that goes into what we've written as a society is that fitness has to be grueling. It has to be hard. It has to push you to your limits. And I think we very much as a fitness industry lost this, this mindset that it's a holistic level, right? Because you can be strong, but if you're not if your joints can't function, if you have no mobility, if you have no flexibility, how good is that strength gonna, where is that going to take you? If you're not working on yoga and breathing, if you're not managing your stress, like there's such a bigger approach than just constant hit workouts or constant, where you're just tapping yourself out. And there's a lot of trends that can be good. There's also a lot of trends that I think make people feel like they are missing the bar if they're not, needing to see the chiropractor, or if they don't feel that muscle soreness, do they really do something? And I think that is a big part of where we've gone wrong in the fitness world, is that we've kind of coached people into thinking that it's just about the hard stuff and it's not about the recovery.
Well, and it's also about the competition. It seems like it's very competitive. Like even on my Echelon bike, every class I go to is a competition. It's like, and they say, don't worry about where everybody else is on the list, this and that. But they have the list. It's still there. And there's 2,000 people. And then at the end, they'll be like, you were 1,550 out of 2,000. And it's like, well, that makes me feel like shit. And luckily I don't care, but I bet you there's a lot of people out there that do care. And so it's like that idea of sustainability and just, I guess my mind shift changed on fitness maybe over the last decade, because in my early life, especially when I used to lift a lot of weights, it was about being attractive for me. That was what it was about. I mean, I'm not like, it's the same reason I started playing guitar. Like I was, I liked women, and I thought they wanted someone that was like buff and sang on the guitar. And throughout that process, the music thing's different. I like totally changed my perspective when I actually fell in love with it for real and actually did it for real reasons. And then, but fitness wise, as I've looked at people older than me that are really healthy, and as I know that I'm 41 now, I'm like, okay, I'm 29 years from being 70. Like that's freaking crazy. But if I look at people, I was talking to Will Primos on this show the other day. He turned 70 actually today. And he gets up and has for years at 3:30 in the morning, and he rides a bike, very low impact, a stationary bike, low impact, and reads for like 2 hours every day. And then he's at work by 6 or whatever. And he looks like he did 15 years ago. Like he looks so healthy. Now, my point is now I'm starting to look at that. It's like, okay, like I'm married. She's got what she's got. I mean, I don't need to be ripped, but I do want to like lower my risk of heart disease and heart attack and stroke. And that's it's just, I'm so old saying this, but that's the stuff I think about now. So I look at Will and I'm like, I want to do that. Is that what I need to do? Just get up early, do some cardio, lift moderately sometimes, do some stretching, eat well, read, keep your mind healthy, and statistically your odds go up of having a better life, a longer life.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? I just was picking up on that, and I didn't talk to Will. I didn't have this conversation, but he's managing his stress. He's living that's peaceful. It's a peaceful lifestyle. Yes, it's highly regimented and he's moving his body with purpose, but he's managing his stress. He's investing in his cognitive health. He's, tapping into all of those things that holistically make somebody a healthy person. Right. So I think, and I spent a long time killing my body. I mean, I was a half marathon runner for a long time and did races every chance I could get. And then I started competing and endurance stuff and triathlons. And from the outside looking in, I probably looked pretty ripped and pretty lean and I could run really fast and that was great. But I was taxing my body continually. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss, is that exercise is still a stress to the body. It doesn't matter. Your body just sees that as a tax, as a stress. And so if we're not balancing that stress, that input with stress reduction, with things like reading or meditation or prayer or quiet time or family time.
For me, it's a nap.
Oh, nap sounds amazing. I think
seriously, I want to talk about that, but keep going.
naps are incredible. Naps are life for sure.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a nappuccino?
I want one.
Well, try this today. So they say drink a cup of coffee or whatever your caffeine source is,
Okay.
and then immediately lay down for a 20 to 30-minute nap. Because that's the amount of time that it will take for that caffeine to kick in. So you wake up from the 20 to 30-minute nap feeling refreshed, but then your caffeine is also kicked in. So you're ready to go.
Oh,
Nappuccino.
wow. I want one. Yeah, no, I take more naps than I'm going to admit on the podcast.
I think that's incredible. You'll probably live a lot longer than a lot of us because of it.
Well, I had lunch with a woman that works with me a couple days ago, and I didn't know this, but because we were talking, it was like 12:30 or something. She goes, "I got to hurry up and get out of here because I have a phone call to make. Then it's my nap time." And she's 43, something like that. I'm like, "You take a nap every day?" She's like, "Every single day at 2:00, I take a nap." I'm like, "I love this." Because I'm scared to talk about it because everybody's like, "You take a nap?" I haven't taken a nap in years, like so tough. I take a nap probably 4 or 5 times a week. And anyway, so I dug into it. She grew up, her grandma, and this is like in very rural Eastern Oregon. Her grandma is 97 now and still healthy. And she knew that she could not call or go to her grandma and grandpa's house between 2 and 4 because that was their nap time. And then at the end of their nap time, they would wake up and walk down to the end of the lane. And I just think that's such a freaking peaceful life. And then I started thinking about my wife and I's trip to Spain, and they were like heavy on naps there. And I loved it over there. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't have any scientific proof to this, but I think it is one of the reasons I'm pretty healthy and I'm not aging as fast as some of my other friends is because I also go to bed at 8:30 though. I go to bed at 8:30 and I wake up at 5:30. So what is that? That's a lot of sleep for most people. Maybe my hypothesis is not true, but I don't know. It's just part of my physiology, and it's just the way it is. But I tell my wife that's my meditation. My meditation is my nap, because sometimes I don't even fall all the way asleep. I just lay there for like 20 minutes, close my eyes. I turn off my phone. I get away from my computer. I put the dogs in a different room. I turn on a fan, and I just have a half hour of peace. And for me, it's life.
I feel more at peace just listening to that part of your story. That sounds amazing. That sounds so good. But there is a lot of data that supports that being a benefit to longevity, cognition, stress management, all the things, definitely. So naps are good. And I think, like you said, you talk to people that say, I haven't taken a nap. And that goes back to our hustle society. That if you have time for a nap, what are you really doing with your life? Like if you're not hustling and grinding it out and living in this fast paced, super stressful world, that are you really achieving enough? And that's
and my counter to that is there's a difference between hustling inefficiently and hustling efficiently. This day and age, you can be really efficient with your time. With all the technology we have, just with a little bit of thoughtfulness and how you conduct yourself. I've had the opportunity to work around quite a few people that are expert operators in the business world. And I was not for a long time. It was a total mess. And I'm still a mess. But I'm a lot better than I used to be. And I can get in 5 or 6 hours of work, I can get more done than a lot of people can get done in 2 days. And that's how I find time to take a nap.
I like to work like I'm going to go shed hunting when I'm finished. It sounds so dumb, but that's my thing. I absolutely love shed hunting. So if I have a list, sometimes, especially I've worked from home for a number of years. And so it can be easy to go like, okay, I'll do the dishes, or I'll do this, or I'll find other things, or I'll do it in an hour or whatever. But I literally start my day going, okay, when I get this done, I can go shed hunting. And I'm just like, it's crazy how efficient and quick and, diligent I can be when I have that thing, that motivating factor that I can go and do. Now, when it's not shed hunting season, I have to use something different, but right now I'm in a good spot.
Yeah, it's usually the people that are critiquing how much you're working are the ones that are the most inefficient, and they're just jealous because they can't figure out a way to organize themselves, or they're so addicted to the hustle that they just can't get away from it. And they're also insecure and jealous about that. I've been
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I've been critiqued my whole life. So is my dad, by the way, because I come from a family, and actually most of my family, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My job at Sitka Gear for 11 years was the most normal job any of my family members have had. And it's not a normal job. It was obviously. And I remember in high school, my friends would be like, "What in the hell does your dad do? I see him driving around at like 2 o'clock. I see him, go golfing on Thursdays. Does he even have a job?" And it's like, yeah, he owns his own business. He's an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur, this is kind of before entrepreneurship became more mainstream. An entrepreneur, yeah. Well, what the hell? What does that mean? I mean, I got shit my entire childhood. And now, and my dad always just brushed off and continued living his life. And now, same shit, even when I was at Sitka and busting my ass. I mean, the first 5 years of Sitka were like hustle to the 120% degree. Like it was like constant hustle, 24 hours a day. Any and every day could be total failure and bankruptcy. Like it was really stressful. But even then, you're just hunting. Like I wish I could sell hunting gear. It's like, well, you could, and no, I'm not just hunting. And even if I am, so what? That's part of my job. Like, go get a hunting industry, And then since I've left there, even having a couple of my own businesses, same thing. It's like, I'd love to see you work sometime. It's like, well, I work nonstop, but I do it in spurts, and I try to be efficient when I do it, but rarely do I have a day off. Like I can't just say I'm taking off for 5 days and I'm off. It's like, well, I mean, we're going on a trip with the family for 12 days in June. I have to have internet. I can't just, I'm going to be in paradise, but I'm not off. So it's all perspective on how you look at it,
It's definitely perspective. And I think that is one thing that is really misunderstood about entrepreneurship, is that it's for people that don't want to work or don't want to, don't have good work ethic. And I think for many people, that's the opposite. You see things a little bit differently, right? You can create things to be a little bit more efficient. And I do have that question here and there too. People go, "What do you work? Do you work?"
What's
People
your job?
me,
what do you do?
Well, they'll ask me if I work, for one, and then they're like, well, what do you do? And I think sometimes, because for me, I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Do I work? Like, because in my life, I'm like, I'm always doing something. I'm always, whatever. But I just have to remember that is a perception that I don't control for other people.
And oftentimes they legitimately, I mean, it was that perspective or that sort of outlook on life was never shared with a lot of people. And it's not malicious. It's like, they're just like, wait a minute. Here I am busting my ass for a paycheck 10 hours a day, and Courtney's over here working out.
Well, and I think that sometimes that comes from people's place of misery. A lot of people are not happy in their 9-to-5s or what they're doing. And so when we're unhappy with where we're at, we can start to critique or criticize or judge other people from where they are, because it's where we actually want to be. So those insecurities, I think, can kind of fester up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you about the outdoors. So obviously you love hunting and hiking and all the things, shed hunting. Was that part of your childhood, or is that something you had to learn later? I mean, you grew up in a place, by the way, I grew up in Oregon too. Courtney are both Oregonians, and I still could not point to where she lives on a map. That's how like rural it is, which I think is cool. I now live in a town that's got less than 1,000 people, so I'm not critiquing it. I love it, but so I mean, you grew up in rural Oregon in the country, so I'm assuming you've always loved the outdoors.
I have, yeah. And fortunately, my dad did a really good job of nurturing that with me when I was young. So, not that I remember it by any means, but like that's just what we did. At six weeks old, I was on a deep sea fishing trip. When I was just a toddler, I was running around deer camp and helping my dad gut animals, so that's just what I knew, fortunately for me. And like I said, he just did a good job of nurturing that. My mom and my sister were there. My mom likes the outdoors, but could probably do without it. It's not a part of really what she needs to fill her cup. And my dad and I were kind of always the misfits that felt a little differently. So I mean, I remember even when I was like 10 or 11, he'd take me over to Eastern Oregon, which is probably from here about like a 6-hour drive. And we'd go for like a day and a half, just to get out. And he worked a lot. He owned his own business. I didn't understand when I was a kid that he was an entrepreneur, but now I know. And yeah, he just really instilled in me that the independence, and also just like soaking up the resources that we have to be outside, which I'm super grateful for. His dad was a Idaho Fish and Game warden. His biological father was a gunsmith, and so there was a lot of like hunting, outdoor gun shooting sports in my childhood, definitely.
On your website, it says wildlife. What does that mean?
Adventure, seeking the unknown.
So let's talk about that, because I'm fascinated on this subject. Why in the hell would anybody want to seek the unknown?
Because I think we're all afraid to seek the unknown. We want to be in control of things. We want to know what to expect, what's around the next corner. But I feel like that can brew some complacency in our lives that don't challenge us into growing. And the number one thing for me in my life that I feel like I always have to have is challenge, which on the surface, it'd be nice for things to go easy and predictable and all those things. But I think I become just a really routine, kind of robotic human being if I'm not being challenged. And I remember specifically my first trip, my first sheep hunt in Alaska. And I really didn't know what to expect. And I had this envision in my mind of what it was going to be. And there's going to be animals everywhere. And it was just me like, craziness. And it was so empty and big. And I just felt like the most insignificant, tiny speck on earth. And it was soul filling. And I was like, wow. I am just, nothing cares about me out here. I am so unimportant. Like, this is just big and wild. And that's kind of where that, tagline, so to speak, came from, is chase that wildlife. Because for me, it means chase the unknown, chase the adventure, chase the experience of challenging yourself and growing and learning. Because to me, that's where when I'm in those raw moments outdoors, that's really where I understand my potential. I realize what I'm capable, or what I've said I'm incapable of, and I can rewrite that narrative for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Adventure is one of those weird things that it seems like all of us want, but not all of us are willing to go out and grab. More natural. It seems like we naturally want it, but we more naturally seek comfort and safety. But just by definition, adventure is something that an experience you can't predict the outcome of, or like the events within it. I call it the gray area, and it can be, the analogy can be drawn to everything, including business ownership or marriage or hunting. It seems like life is a big adventure, whether you want to admit it or not. You don't know what's going to happen the next minute or the next hour or the next day or the next year. So you can either choose to kind of bury your head in the sand and try to pretend that you're in this safe cloak from all danger and change and challenge, or you can embrace it and create what Hillary Lampers deemed, she told me, that is positive stress. Like, seek positive stress. And one form of positive stress is like seeking adventures. And obviously for you and I, a great portion of that is through hunting in the outdoors. And we've talked about this before, but when you're going on that caribou hunt in Alaska, well, and this is with every hunt, which is the craziest thing about it. It's like you plan for sometimes years, you save for sometimes years, and you're going on this caribou hunt in Alaska. And in your mind, you want to have this fantasy, like you're going to land, like you're going to fly in, and there's going to be like 2,000 caribou migrating, and like you're going to land, set up camp, and this fantasy. But the reality of it is you're going into country where nothing cares about you. Actually, it doesn't want you there. And most likely, most of the seconds within that week-long trip are going to be filled with failure and misery and sleep deprivation and dehydration and hunger and coldness and sweat and dirt and grizzly bears and wolverines and rivers and a plane ride that may or may not get there's all these dangers and unknowns. But that's also what makes it amazing. But if you actually and then also you're more than likely going to fail the whole time anyway, and statistically not even get anything. So the whole point, so if your point of going there is to kill a caribou because like this fantasy you have in your head, well, that's kind of a shitty goal. It's like, I think we're oftentimes dishonest with ourselves as hunters. Like, a more realistic goal for a great percentage of us is to go, yeah, I would like to kill a caribou, but why am I really going? Because I want the adventure. I need the adventure. I have to have it, because if I don't have it, I'm mentally depressed. And if I don't, and it's not even necessarily like I need, like looking forward to it is just as important as actually doing it. I need to have the adventure planned. I need to have it planned because I will live in that adventure the whole time, the time following up to it, the time while I'm there, and for years after. Like, that adventure is part of me. I need it. I think we would be much more honest if we just admitted that. And I also think that most people need it, but a lot of people are too scared to sort of soul search and figure out that they need it. Or maybe not. I could be wrong. But
or maybe they haven't had that experience yet where they go, oh, this is a big component I've been missing. Is this the unknown experience and adventure? For me personally, I've been hunting a long time. I've been hunting since I was 11 and with my own tags and being a part of that. I could never shoot another animal in my life and be 100% fine with it. That is my truth. I don't have to shoot the animal. That to me is the most insignificant part of it. Not as I don't take that insignificantly as far as taking a life, but for me, that's the most unimportant part of my experience. I need to be there. I need to watch animals in their natural habitat. I need to have the challenge of the mountain. I need to have those moments where I go, shit, do I have what it takes to get up and down this mountain? those parts for me, and it works out really well for Dustin because, I tell him all the time, yeah, we can go there and do that hunt. I don't care if I hunt it, I'm just being there in that moment for me is soul filling enough.
Yeah. Ironic story. So in 2015, I got the opportunity to go stone sheep hunting. And for those of you who don't know, stone sheep hunting in North America is probably like top 3 most expensive aspirational hunts there is. And one of my friends before I went, who had done it before, said, I'm just going to tell you one thing. It was a 10-day hunt I had planned. I'm going to tell you one thing. Hunt all 10 days. And when you pay a lot of money for a hunt, you have this weird conundrum in your head. It's like, I paid this much, meaning I'm not going to ever get to do this again, so I better get one. But also, I don't want the adventure to end early. So like, what if I see one on day 1? That's like cool because you're lucky you succeeded, but also not cool because you put all that money into one day. And the adventure could have been much more. So anyways, long story short, I got up there with my friend Dustin Rowe, who's an amazing person and one of the best sheep hunters that's ever lived, in my opinion. And I brought my recurve bow, but I had it, and then I had a rifle, which also never do that because you're going to shoot the rifle. But I had my bow broken down in my backpack, and day number 2, we saw a ram that, I mean, it was the one for sure, but we lost it. So we went back to camp and decided to go after it next day. But at camp, I was like, oh my God, I know that I can probably shoot this ram tomorrow morning, but it's like we just got done with day 2. We had just gotten back to we're actually we were 10 miles from the lake we landed on, but we had just got to the point where he actually wanted to start hunting. Like there was a whole nother, I don't even know how many miles of wild country he wanted to go. And he pointed to it. He's like, dude, I still want to go over there. He's like, we can go kill that ram, but over there is where I really wanted to take you. And so I had that decision, but then I also had the decision, do I want to bet on myself and try to accomplish this with my recurve bow? Or if we find it, am I okay killing it with a rifle? And so all night I was like tossing and turning, like kind of stressed out because I know I'm not gonna, this is a fleeting moment of my life. Like this is, I can't afford to go stone sheep hunting maybe ever again. And I knew that. So I woke up the next morning and I decided that if we found the ram, I was going to try to take it. But I still hadn't decided on the rifle bow thing. So we get up there and we're glassing for hours. We find the ram that he was with, but we couldn't find the ram. Finally, at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and this is in August in northern BC, right on the border of the Yukon, and it's light for a long time. But I think we found the ram around 2 p.m., but he was way down in this rocky basin. And so this is now to the point where now I got to make the decision. I've already made the decision that I'm willing to end this adventure early if the ram gives me a chance. Because I know once we kill it, we have to start preparing to fly out because, meat spoiling and all that. And Dustin's got better things to do than just sit there and let me, watch me
camp out.
Yeah. He's rolling, So this ram, he gets up out of there was no way to get after him where he was. So he gets out of this boulder pile and he kind of starts walking up the mountain towards us. And Dustin goes, David, pull out your bow, put it together. And he's like, in the next 8 days, I will get you a shot at that ram. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, and the ram's coming up the mountain and we had a way to get in position where he was going to be like 100 yards. And I just remember sitting there going back and forth. And I ended up Dustin asked me several times. He's like, dude, just take your bow out, get your bow out. And I'm like, God, dude, but with the caveat, he also said, get your bow out. We can do this. We'll make it happen. You'll at least get a shot. But he's like, also, I have to be honest, we may not even see another legal ram. Because in the 2.5 days we'd been in there, we'd seen 7 sheep, 1 legal ram. And that was the one we were looking at. So in my mind, I'm weighing all these things. And anyways, I chose the rifle and I killed the ram. And the next day we hiked out. We actually took 3 rams in 3 days because there was a couple other people in the next basin. We all met up. We all hiked out. We had this historic experience of hiking out with 3 stone rams and on a beautiful day, 10 miles down to this unbelievably gorgeous lake with a white sandy beach, turquoise water with this old broken down boat on it. For anybody that follows me on social media, you can look back at some of these pictures. It's still one of the best days of my life. And the reason I'm telling this long-winded story is because looking back, I wish I would have just brought the bow out. And not because I need to like feed my ego, but the bow would have required more days. And the bow would have, maybe I could have filled the trip out. Like I could have stayed all 10 days up there because I'm never going to see that country again. And it was incredible. So, but also, I wouldn't trade that day packing those 3 rams out to that beautiful unknown lake for anything. Mm-hmm. So it's like this weird, like I was successful based off one metric, and it was still an adventure, but this adventurous side of me is like, yeah, but it could have been much more of an adventure. Like we could have been up there, Dustin and I had the chance to spend the next 8 days with the best sheep guide there is trying to get this ram with a recurve. So now sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, like craving being back up there in that country that I was in. And I am going to make it happen that I'm going to go back up there, and Dustin knows this. And I will not be taking a rifle, and I'm taking 14 days, and I want to use all 14 of them. So Dustin, if you're listening, we're gonna go up there. We're gonna make that sheep wait till day 14, and then I'm just kidding, obviously, if it happens. But you get my point. It's a weird problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, I'm listening, and I'm also thinking about the trip that I took with my son this year. So it was our first time really taking him. He's been hunting and camping and recreating a lot, but we did a fly-in. It was supposed to be caribou, but it turned into a moose hunt. And he's 12. It was relatively easy in the fact that we got to fly in, so we're not packing all of our crap with us, for that part of it. And the experience is different when you got your kiddo there, for sure. And and I knew that going into it, I knew it would be a little bit different, but I did have that moment where I thought, I want him to soak up every piece of this. I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to leave early. I don't want to, just only have good weather or whatever. You want the full picture, the full experience. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes you can almost feel to some degree a little gypped if you don't get that full experience. Like you were saying, yeah, you invest time and money and, sacrifice sometimes from leaving your family or all those things that you go, give all of it to me. Right. Let me have this full, real, raw experience.
Yeah, and I remember one aspect of that story that I didn't say is right before I left, we decided to try to buy a new house. So I was like negotiating the contract over my DeLorme. So that was stressing me out too. So there's always this push and pull, and anybody who follows me, I wrote a song about it. It's called Altitude, and it's like this push and pull between needing that adventure, but also needing to be home. But if you have just one or just the other, you're not complete. So it's like, again, it's like a balancing act. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I've never figured it out because I just have a wife that's very understanding. but I step over the line still, you know, every once in a while. I go on a trip I probably shouldn't go on, or I stay a little longer than I should have, or sometimes I'll come home earlier than I should have, and I was worried about things that aren't real. So,
Oh my gosh, you're speaking my language right now.
yeah.
That is me, on those, whether I'm traveling for work or I'm traveling for adventure or I'm on a hunt, as a mom, I'm always very aware of the fact that if I'm there and they're not with me, I'm missing that piece of their life. I'm missing those days. I'm missing that 2 weeks or whatever. And there is that tug, there is that pull. And of course, I think sometimes we make those stories up like, well, I'm missing this, or I'm not there, or they're probably feeling this way. And then you get home and it's just life is normal, right? They just hope that you had a good time. And
Yeah. And you get back and you're like, well, shit, I guess if it was normal, then I could have stayed.
you rushed yourself right out of the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been guilty of that so many times. So I wanted to talk a little bit earlier. You mentioned, so you retired from being in fitness, and now you're sort of setting on this entrepreneurial path where you're in marketing and all the things you're doing right now. But that identity, I don't, can I call it an identity crisis?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I can say these things because I've gone through that exact thing before, and I know a lot of people that have, but most people seem like they're scared to talk about it or admit it or whatever.
Sure.
There's probably a lot of people out there that are going through a similar thing, where they have to make a change in their life, whether that's work or whatever, and we seem to build these personas in our heads of who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am Dave Brinker that works at Sitka, and if I don't work at Sitka, then I don't have an identity anymore. Or I am whoever that does XYZ. I'm Joe Blow, I'm a carpenter and a tough guy with a big truck, and that's all I am, and that's all I'll ever be. And it's like, see, everybody gets to a point where things change, and like we all kind of gotta, our personas are fluid, and our identities have to be fluid. Otherwise, that's not adventure, right?
Well, you hit the nail right on the head for me. And you and I have spoke personally on this topic a bit. And I actually just totally out of the blue called you and I said, help, I'm having this identity crisis because I really want to retire. And this was not something that just happened abruptly. It had been planned out for a lengthy amount of couple years. And I'm like, if I'm not Courtney, the fitness chick, who am I? But what I didn't realize was, I live in a small town. I grew up next to a small city. This is what I've done. This is a staple of who I am. This is a big part of my life, personally and professionally. But that was a box I put myself in. And I felt like there was almost some inadequacy or correlation to shame to watch my life evolve, to not stay who I was. So for an example, when I first started my own fitness business, it was called Finish Line Boot Camp. And I had young kids at the time. And so we did boot camp in the park. It was we would use equipment, we would use whatever, but it was moms working out with babies or toddlers. And then as my own kids grew, that evolved and changed. That seemed so seamless to me. That was perfect. And I think sometimes what we lose sight of is that we're not the same person we were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. We are expected to evolve as human beings and mature and grow. But if we're doing that professionally, I think, and maybe I'm only speaking for me or a small circle of people, but I think that there's almost some identity mishaps. I think that you can second guess yourself. You can put yourself into a small box when you're not meant to be there. You're not meant to stay that person that you were 15 years ago. And for me, that's where my mindset had to change and going, there's no shame in evolving and growing. and demanding more challenge and learning in your life. That was just something that was in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So once I got clear on the fact that it's okay to change and we should change over time, then it became a no-brainer for me. But that doesn't mean it was easy, for sure.
No, it's awful. It's, but I wonder if it's awful because we're worried so much about how this persona being perceived by other people. Like, I wonder how much it actually has to do with what we think of ourselves or actually what we think other people think we are. So, like, for example, I'm Courtney, the fitness chick. Everybody knows me for this. Like, this is what I do. So if I come out and I say, I'm Courtney, the whatever, the chef now, or the author, or whatever, I think sometimes we like imagine like worst case scenarios with people. It's like, well, no one's going to understand.
Definitely.
I'm Courtney, the fitness chick. And I think, so I just wonder, because like I said, I've been through several different phases of, I mean, I grew up in a small town too. And when I told my friends that I was going to leave someday and do bigger things, they're like, whatever, dude. Get a job at the mill, buy a truck, find yourself a local wife. You know, you're not going anywhere. You can't leave here. What are you talking about, you idiot? You know? And I would start to question whether they're right. I would start to question, maybe I am David Brinker from Dallas, Oregon, who got a 1.8 in high school and who drinks beer and lives with his parents and doesn't ever do anything. You know what I mean? Like, what if maybe they're right. So anyways, I wonder how much of that was you putting that pressure on yourself. Well, it's definitely you putting the pressure on yourself, but was it because you were worried about what other people thought, or was it because it was actually true?
It was absolutely both for me.
Yeah.
Because it was just the narrative that I kept telling myself since I was 17, fitness is what I know. Fitness is what I've done. So that is a very narrow-minded way of thinking, because in that part of my fitness life and in building my business, I wore a lot of hats, and I realized that there are things I really enjoy doing, some things I'm good at, some things I don't like, some things I'm not good at. And so I just clung to that is who I am as a person. The other side of that is that social pressure. And I think for me, what I've seen, and I was like, gosh, I don't want people to think this, because for me personally, I will be very honest and say it kind of irks me when you see somebody come out and now they're the expert at something they just started doing 2 months ago. You know what I mean? And so I think that we do live in a time where you can just build and create and be the expert on anything that you want or made up, right? Which could be good or bad, I guess. But I was worried that if I go into following my passion in, media and PR and marketing, that people would be like, well, she's just another one that just all of a sudden is this guru in something she doesn't even have a degree in. So there was, and still is, I guess, probably, if I'm being very honest with myself, that you almost feel like an imposter when you step out of one role and try to navigate into a new role. You're like, who the fuck am I?
Well, and I've learned that when you feel that way, you should take even a harder look at it doing it, because that means you're actually doing something different. That feeling, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I feel that way about everything that I do all the time. But, and I think you might have asked me one time, you're a musician, you're a hunter, you're blah, blah, you have a podcast and all this stuff. Or do you ever worry about, never being great at anything and being okay, good at some things, right? And my answer is I'm totally fine with it, because I've never been too interested in, and I'm glad there are people interested in being the greatest thing ever at one thing, because they're really fun to watch, whether they're athletes or whatever. But I've just never been that way, because I find adventure in doing things that I am an imposter into. I mean, when I put out my album a few years ago and I went to Nashville and did all that stuff, I don't I take a lot of critique. You don't even live in Nashville. You don't even take this seriously. You know, if you took it seriously, you'd live here and do it every day like I do it. It's like, well, that's great, and I'm glad you do that, but that doesn't mean that I can't do it.
Right.
And what does my life have anything to do with yours? I'm going to do it how I want to do it. You don't need to listen to it or buy it or even buy into it. I don't care. I'm going to have this podcast. I'm going to, whatever project it is, I find adventure in, like, it actually energizes me. And maybe that's a good thing or maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know. But I think you're probably similar. But you do have to get over the fact that you are constantly going to fail and hit bumps. Mm-hmm. And like, it's like, if you're a perfectionist, it's really hard to rewire your brain towards like, I don't know how the hell to record a song, but I'm going to go and figure it out. I'm going to find people. I'm not going to figure it out. I'm going to find people that will help me figure it out. And I am going to look like an idiot sometimes. And I am going to not know lingo and all these things. Mm-hmm. I'm totally fine with that because this is an adventure and it's exciting. And I'm confident enough in myself to not let it bother me enough to really get at me. You know, I
love that.
You know, easier said than done.
Mm-hmm. I think when you let go of the expectation of needing to be the master at something, life's a little more fun, you know, and then when you realize, you know, you can hire people to do the things you're not good at. Perfect.
By the way, you can hire masters.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the trick.
Yeah.
Believe me, Elon Musk is no rocket master. I mean, he will even tell you before he started SpaceX, he didn't know anything about rockets. What did he do? He learned enough to be dangerous and then hired a bunch of brilliant people to build SpaceX.
Yeah.
Elon Musk was not a car maker. He doesn't know anything about cars. He learned enough to be dangerous, then hired a whole company of people that can figure it out. Do you see what I'm saying? Yep. It's like it's this, I don't know, I could be wrong here, but it almost seems like it's this release of anxiety of people's opinions and being wrong or even looking like a dumbass sometimes. You know who I think does a really good job of it and ironically has also found a way to be pretty masterful at a lot of things, multiple things, is Joe Rogan. You know, if you look at Joe, he's so humble. He says it all the time. I'm a moron. Like, don't listen to me. I'm just I'm a pot smoking moron. But he's got the #1 podcast in the world. He's like one of the main media people in the UFC. He's one of the top comedians there is. Blah blah blah. On and on. Oh, he's a multi-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. On and on and on and on. And I've been trying to figure out for years, trying to learn from that for years. And I think what it is, one of my theories is he's so curious he can't help it. He's so curious. It's like approaching the world from a perspective of like, I do this one thing and I'm better than anybody and everything else is stupid. It's like turn that all around and be like, I am overwhelmed with curiosity of all things. And if like jiu-jitsu, I want to learn that. And then he takes it really seriously, like super seriously, and goes all the way to the end. And he's like, now I'm curious about comedy. Does that. So I just think maybe if we all, and I struggle with this too, it's like maybe had more curiosity, maybe we'd be less worried about people's opinions and be just the need to seek answers and learn new things would trump what we like all these stupid anxieties we have.
Well, I think if we spend a little more time just being genuine and authentic with it, not showing up as the expert, showing up just being like, hey, I'm going to dive into this right now. I'm new at it. I don't think a lot of people are willing to be new at it.
And when you do that, the people that are really good at it are much more likely to help you than if you, I can speak most authentically on this from a hunting perspective because I have been hunting since I left the womb, and it's probably the thing that I'm the best at out of the things that I do. And I also have now a pretty full career in the industry, so I know it pretty inside and out. I can smell inauthenticity from like a mile away with just a few words. Like you could say a few words and I can tell whether you're authentic or not. But I don't judge until someone tries to come off like they're like the greatest thing since sliced bread. Then
Right.
I get judgy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say, David or anybody, I tell people this all the time. If you want to, like, hey, I'm getting into elk hunting. What do I do? Like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to buy. I'm like, well, the first thing you do is you just admit that. And you go to people in your local area that you want to learn from, and you go, I literally have no idea what I'm doing, and I do not expect you to take me. But is there anything you can do to help me? Like, can I come out and shoot my bow with you sometime? You know, if you're ever going out for a hike to one of your spots, and like just anything. I'm just seeking information. I'm a nobody, as opposed to the guy that walks in like onto the ski slope with all the nicest stuff, or into the bow shop with all the nicest stuff, and like speaks a huge game, but literally it's like an empty barrel. There's nothing in there, and it's all ego and insecurity. No one's going to want to help you. No one wants to be around you. And for God's sakes, if you're new to hunting, don't ask people for their spots. That's the number one killer. If you ask people for their spots, they're never going to help you with anything. They don't want to give their spots. There's a lot of things they'll give up. Spots, not one of them. Yeah. So break the news to you guys. If you're new to hunting, you're going to have to find your own spots. But guess what? There's never been more resources to do that. So plug for gohunt.com.
And like you said, a lot of people that are willing to help point you in the right direction. It just has to be approached the right way. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So anyways, I don't even know how we got into that. Courtney, where can people find things about you? Websites, social?
Yeah. So it's going to be across the board, Her Outdoor Journey. Heroutdoorjourney.com, or on Instagram, primarily over Facebook. I am on Facebook a little bit, but if you have questions or want to reach out or send a message, you can do it through Instagram.
And you have outdoor ladies camps coming up. Is that correct?
I do. Yeah. So actually it's pretty fun. This is our 4th year doing it. This year we're hosting all here in Oregon, in Fall Creek. Beautiful Pacific Northwest, right at the foothills of the Cascades. Great area. We're doing archery 1 and 2. So for brand new beginners, you already have a bow. Maybe it's been passed down. You just haven't spent a lot of time with it. We want to get you familiar with your bow, with your draw cycle, even tuning your bow, shooting past 20 yards. And then level 2, which is going to be for somebody who wants to do a little bit more situational shooting, more long distance. And then, getting your broadheads on, getting dialed in for broadheads, that kind of thing. And this year I'm really excited because we added a backcountry experience camp. So what I hear a lot from women, this is a common theme. I really want to go out hunting. I don't have anybody to take me, or I really want to go hike, but I don't feel comfortable doing it alone. So the backcountry experience is just trying to help people understand a little bit how to do it, the ethics behind it, how to, have trail safety, what to do in those situations. So that is all available. You can see that on heroutdoorjourney.com. Most of the camps are sold out. The backcountry experience does have a few spots left in it, but huge advocate for pointing women in the right direction when they're wanting to get started, whether that's rifle hunting or archery hunting, or just really getting outdoors and exploring. I love rec, and I think that there's so much to be learned, and you can really find yourself when you get off grid. So happy to help in any way possible.
That's cool. I love those things. And it seems like these are becoming more prevalent. Like there's we're all, for so long we kind of went all virtual, and now these more in-person events and camps and hikes and summits are they're super fun and cool. So I would encourage anybody out there that hasn't done anything like that, find something that fits you, whether it's Courtney's events she's putting on, or like the Western Hunting Summit or Elk Shapes Summits. Like these are all so awesome, and they're worth every single dime. You will learn so much and have an experience that lasts forever. So, Courtney, I appreciate you coming on today, and it's always a good conversation. And I imagine we'll do this multiple times.
Oh, Dave, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and glad to know that you finally have a show coming out. It's been a while. It's been a while coming.
Well, it'll be exciting when it does come out. We're recording this. What is it, March 2nd? Mm-hmm. So people probably won't be listening to this till later this spring or even this summer. But yeah, no, it's awesome. I just love talking to people that I can learn stuff from. So appreciate you.
You always have rich insight, so the appreciation goes both ways.
I'm going to steal a line from Joe Rogan. No one listen to what I'm saying. I'm a total moron. And no, I appreciate that. All right. Until next time, guys.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Well, thanks for tuning into the Altitude Show today. Make sure to get out and support those that support this show. GoHunt.com, peaksequipment.com. Also, you can support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts, subscribe there and leave a 5-star review. Nothing less than 5 stars. We'll see you next week with a new guest. Have a great day, everyone.